Hello, so yeah, we are finally here for my review of the 7th Acoustics Supernova. I didn't really do my first impressions video because I actually heard it first in Japan when I visited Japan in November and I met Timmy there. I was able to try it. Very quick impressions though at that time. At that time it was solid for me. I knew I have my tour unit coming, so kind of like reserve my thoughts because I want to, have a full listen, like, spend a lot of time with the Supernovas before giving my impressions. So here we are. If you're curious about the box, this is what it looks like. I'm sure you've seen it already. So let's just go through this really quickly. You open them and the IMs should be sitting here, and you pull up this something here. You also get a sticker, a warranty card. What's surprising is that you actually get a pair of vinyl ear tips. Not a pair, quite a lot, like one box. So I think it's E series. They also have their own ear tips. You get a case which is, metal or aluminum, a cleaning cloth, and that's probably it. So that's what's in the box now. Okay, let's talk about its signature. Oh, but before the signature, the cable also is, I think these are not stock Supernova cables. I think these are like CMA or CMA cables, which are really high quality cables. They feel like high quality and in 4.4 termination. This is the design here. If you look at that, really gorgeous looking IM. See that? Like, I got the green thing, which is like, it looks like Venom or something. I like it. In terms of fit, they do fit my ears pretty well. There's this vacuum pressure. It's very common for all VA setup because they don't have vents. Yeah, let's talk about its sound. Oh, but before that, I'm just gonna talk about each frequency and score them accordingly. Okay, so again, when I first heard it, I really felt like it sounded comparable to most top-of-the-line sets that I have heard. It's very detailed. It's an all BA setup. It's like a 6-balance armature driver, like dual Sonyon vented bass, Sonyon mid, I think, Knowles treble. Yeah, I thought these are like, it has some ESTs, but I think for the treble it has like Knowles upper treble. So moving on to the sound of the Supernovas. The tonality is actually quite balanced. I wouldn't call it neutral because I also wouldn't call it coloration. It's just a balanced sounding set. I would have liked for it to have a little bit of mid bass so that the signature would sound more open. The stage isn't also as wide because of the bass presentation. So for the tonality, I think I'm giving it a 2.5. Not perfect, although I liked it, but there were times that I would have really liked for it to sound more open for my preference. For the bass, I know it's a Sonyon VA vented. I mean, there are vents here. I'm sorry for actually there's a vent here, but for some reason I don't feel a lot of physicality. BA bass is very distinct though. I feel like DD bass handles bass pretty good. I mean, what I mean is, like, I feel like DD still handle bass quite differently, and I don't get that from these. Maybe it's because of, it's a BA bass, or like it's a BA doing its bass. What am I talking about? So for the bass, I think I'm gonna give it a 2. It's not really bad, but it's not something I like either. So it's just, like kind of like normal for me. Maybe it's also because of its tuning. There's a little bit of mid bass. There's sub bass and mid bass, but then again, for me, the physicality of DD is still very distinct and different. Moving on to the mids, I feel like the mids are one of its strongest points, because for me, the mids really stand out with these. Vocals and instruments sound really good and natural as it can get. I feel like there's very good space around vocals that separates them from instruments. It's very natural sounding, really. Like, for example, Millet, like in her track Ashes, like her voice sounded so close to me. Especially female vocals, they sound very velvety, rich, and all the fancy words I can say. But yeah, for me, they're very natural and organic, especially for instruments. I really like how the mids are done with these. So I'm giving it a 3 for the mids. Okay, so moving on to the treble. The treble actually extends pretty well, but somehow for me it lacks that last bit of realism. You know, it can extract details, yes, which is good, but for my preference, I would have liked the treble to have a little bit more body, especially on cymbal strikes. Yeah, they're a bit thin sounding for me, not really in a sense that they sound natural enough. I like it, but not to the point that I love it. So for that reason, I'm giving it 2.5 for the treble. And so for the technicalities, as I mentioned, it can actually extract a lot of details that you were unaware of before. I'm not saying that you hear new things, it's just that before you were unaware of it, and now you are focused on those details because the Supernova kind of like pushes them forward, okay? Not in a fatiguing way, but in a pleasing way. So the layering and separation is, for me, is just average, and it lacks a little bit of realism. But what this set offers is that it lays every notes in your mind. It's like there's really nothing in the frequency that is suppressed or overly boosted, so everything is just quite flat. And you hear, I don't know, like for some reason when I'm listening to tracks, I feel like the notes are laid out, you know? It's so easy to catch details, like for the drum patterns, for the kick drums, and even like chords from guitars. It's just so easy. So if you're a musician, this will be a very, you know, I think this will be a very beneficial set, because it lets you notice every nuance when you are catching notes and chords. And I think this can be a good stage monitor as well. Stage monitor, take note of that. But I don't know, maybe it can also pass as a studio monitor, but I don't know, like for music consumption, I feel like it really lacks that, I don't know, texture in the bass, maybe slam. So yeah, I think that's it for the Supernova. How much was that? So let me just score that real quick. So 2.5 for tonality, plus 2 for the bass, 3 for the mids, 2.5 for the treble, and 2.5. So that's 12.5, and I think 12.5 is 12.5 is it, which is actually not bad for the price. Forgot the price, but the price is actually now it's $800. Of course, it's cheaper than the Monarchs. For sure, these are like, they sound less V-shaped than the Monarchs. So I'll just move on to the comparisons. So probably one IM that I can compare it with in relation to its price point would probably the Let's Sure EJ07, the OGs. I think they're priced pretty close, around 700 bucks. I mean, if I haven't heard the EJ07s, I would have ranked this S. I mean, I thought of ranking this S, but after hearing the EJ07s, I felt like the EJ07s are just better in terms of, like overall texture and realism and naturalism and timbre. Although the EJ07's treble doesn't extend as well as these, but man, I care less about treble extension really. I want a treble that is actually sloping down, because in real life, cymbals don't actually extend. I mean, they die off, you know, like they don't continue to linger. So yeah, I think like the EJ07s are cheaper, or are they? I think they are like, no, yeah, they're cheaper, $749. For me, they're better, but if you feel like, I mean, also the one con for this is like the waiting time is actually a bit long. Take note of that. For me, for this review unit, it took me like 6 months to get them, because like a lot of people are really lining up for these. I mean, I understand maybe I think they'll be satisfied with their purchase, but just saying that compared to the EJ07s, I prefer the presentation of the EJ07s than this one. Not saying that this is bad, it's just that for my preference and my target, it fell kind of like, you know, the EJ07s are what I'm looking for. What else? Like the Dunu Sa6, I mean, they're much cheaper, but this is in relation to like the specs, because this is also like an all BA setup. What can I say? I think in terms of technical performance, they're maybe quite on par. For the Dunu Sa6, I also feel like it's not as natural. I mean, the treble isn't as natural as I wanted it to be, but This is like almost maybe half the yeah, this is much cheaper. But this is also like more fun sounding. So like there's boosted sub bass and bass and elevated treble. I don't even know why I'm doing this comparison. I'm just comparing it to the things I have now. Another thing I want to compare it with would be like the Studio Force, the Softears Studio Force. Why am I comparing this? Because I feel like the presentation is very close. So like I feel like that this one here is a direct upgrade to the Softears Studio Force in terms of presentation, like texture in the vocals, and probably treble extension. But this is like half the price. You know, the Studio Force are half the price, and paying twice as much for kind of like maybe 5 or 10% upgrade for me is like, you know, diminishing returns hits you. So I'm not sure if it's really worth. I think it's not worth of an upgrade unless you really like I really advise you demo first before buying these. But if I've heard the Studio Force, I think I'd stick with this one here because it's much cheaper. Although if you really want that 5-10% upgrade, then go get the Supernova. Now as for TOTL stuff, as I mentioned, that they're, you know, the sound of these are really comparable with, you know, some of the TOTL stuff, and I'm not, yeah, I really sense that in a way that because in TOTLs you hear something special about them. You know, they master, not really master, like they specialize in some frequencies. Like there are IMs that has very good bass texture, or some IMs that has very good mids or very good treble. It's so hard to find an all-rounder in the TOTL RAM, and for this, the mids on these are kind of like on par with some TOTL sets. It's nonsense to compare it with the things that I don't have right now. What I have right now would be the Let's Sure Cadenza 12. So this is of course much more expensive. This is like $2,000 IEM, but this one's much better, of course, because it has a DD for the bass, ESTs for the treble, and probably the mids are quite on par, actually, or maybe sometimes the mids on these are maybe a bit forward, which made me think that maybe these are better mids-wise because they're more forward sounding. But overall, the sound of the Cadenza 12, let me just open these. The sound of the Cadenza 12 is just like, the overall presentation is just so much better. It's just so much better. Like the treble nuance and realism is just so great with these. Bass is also, I mean, they're not a lot of bass, but I feel like the DD helps a lot with that physicality and slam. But of course, it's like almost 3 times the price of the Supernova, so you know, it's not a fair comparison. I'm just comparing it because that's what I have now, and some people say that it's, you know, like, of course I don't trust my memory, you know, like comparing things by memory is a ridiculous thing to do. So that's what I'm doing now, although it doesn't make sense why I'm comparing these. So yeah, all in all, I think the Supernovas are good. I think these are, I'm not sure if these are for audiophiles, because I'm not, sometimes I don't know what audiophiles are looking for, but I think it's well fitted for musicians, especially musicians who are playing guitars, vocalists also, probably not for drummers, because, you know, again, for the bass. But then again, I think these can be very good studio monitors, not studio, stage monitors. Studio though, you have to try it for yourself because there's a bit of calibration in the bass and the treble, but I do find that it can extract details that's enough to, you know, master a track. But for stage monitor, I think these are great because you can catch the chords and, you know, notes pretty quickly with these. So I think that's it with my review with the Supernova. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, please, you know, subscribe down below, like my video, and thank you so much, 7th Acoustics, again, for providing me with this review unit. This will be on tour. I'm gonna miss this guy. This will be forwarded to the next person, and hope you have a nice day. Bye!